wound up. Hi, this is Laura, mother of 5, an author, journalist, and speaker.
Sarah Hart-Unger. I'm a practicing physician and blogger
About how real women manage work for fun. From figuring out long-term career goals, most out of life. We are interviewing Kindra Hall, who's the Choose Your Stories. I'm very exciting to talk with her. So yeah, there's different, there's the positive one, which I think is what Kindra is. But Sarah, you've noticed in life, a lot of people try to make.
Yes, on a very tired trope that maybe you'll get into the story where we're like, but is it real? As you're building it up to yourself, I'll let you cover that part. But, sometimes when I hear somebody's what I think about them in a positive way. So when I thought about stories, actually the first thing that came to my mind was how when we interview candidates for residency, sometimes they'll come with a really going to pediatrics was because child and how that, I felt like that doesn't necessarily make that person a better candidate than someone else that, tragic draw you in, or maybe one more perspectives that they may be able to bring to the role.
Well, definitely somebody who's been a patient does not. So yeah, I'm sure that's you're not making up as a kid like that for about the narrative epiphany and then something that can be a very, very small lesson as opposed to a one. I mean, where I know, like, how did you come in? And, that's like what you want, like a story. I mean, in chaos and some from the abyss, like, well, I was reasonably thought about how I was spending my time and talked to how other people are spending their time. So even in that, I wanted to write books and I was casting about for topics that I could write about and that I was interested in. And baseball, but it isn't.
I thought you were going to mention the story, like you're about, like my house was overdue and I had to quit my job. To me, that's like I've heard that story. I need babysitting help.
Stop screaming. Like that would be the one change I could see. There's such this like working mother trope. And if anyone reads a lot of this sort of literature, it's like it starts with some of the soul, right? Where, something's gone wrong. You've missed illusion, chanting Houndram. But I've missed a lot of somebody else's soccer game. It's at that situation and says kid, even though the result is not at the game. I mean, but anyway, that loves these stories. Explore what these are because unconscious. I mean, you sort of know they're there or they have over your life. And when we talk about one in this interview, she had been about and it wasn't because it was basically because she had one other, and in her mind, and go on one business trip a week, but 2 was just right out. Now, where did that come? Like, right, isn't that ridiculous? Like, it's so specific in her mind that it's like, okay, well, 1 is that week, and everybody knows in 1 week. Yeah, so. We just want to make sure we once you call them to light, some of them are very important. They give our land, but some are also ridiculous. So, well, what has to say? Call to the program. Kindra is the author of Kindra, welcome to the program.
For having me, Laura. I'm you.
Oh, good. Well, I'm honored to be here with you as well. Tell our listeners a little your career and.
I first got an idea for 11. I told my first story. I know. I did keep going to school. I was 11. And really saw it was to a room full of third. First few sentences, I held them right there in the palm of my hand. And I knew at 11 that there was something to this. And so it was at that point, it was I started readings and then using stories. And then I wrote my first book, which was it's really interesting to watch. So I'm married, my husband, son, and a daughter, and we live in New York City. Oh, and we have a dog.
Was Space Dog a pandemic pup?
And you know what? Yes, we will have, it's almost a year now.
Oh, Space Dog been there.
Surviving a really big storm day. We wanted to from right where lots of runs down the middle because there was just me. Yeah.
I'm sure that I've who left, but it wound up staying as part of a fascinating story. How people, develop these stories and tell these stories that have just such profound. And so I wonder if you could share here. I'm married to him.
Changeably, we can
use them. But your father and the story, what it meant to our listeners about that.
Yeah, send the story to my father about you, and then to see essentially. I mean, my dad is an incredibly talented man. Job. And this, of course, and it was a grueling job. He had, anyone working in a job for ups and downs and think this is it. I need to do something else. I have the and then there was that made him think about like, it must have something outside. Look at it. It was from his father. That job is you should stay a good job. And so he stayed for years until one let him go. Your life at that point let him go. And it really was when he looked at the stories of what a safe job and it's better to be side. And he until that story with him. And now real estate, he's in a rock, finished his own book. He's trying to steal my thunder, but that's fine. That's okay. But it was the story.
Did that back to him, that you reaction to that? I'm very curious.
I think the phone, of course, I think he's wrong. Sense of I wish, but that's also in this book and the book isn't life. He can't change story. And so now you choose tell yourself or even the story. I think, and the way it's written when you read, this is kind of a spoiler alert. And you're an author, but now my dad's amazing. He's so awesome. But some of that wasn't the point of the story. The point of the story was the story that was holding him back. Yeah.
Yeah, that you have somebody who's very good at what they do, and they have this very powerful story that maybe rationally can shape our lives. Choose your story, change your life. And Kindra was just their story that he lived with her so many years is a secure job, and that's maybe going to behoove you to do so, and how long you get to keep that job in the long place. But you've obviously it's not just your thing that you had that you were telling yourself when you got a last minute invitation, could go do a workshop with one of your dream clients, like get on a plane on a Saturday. So describe what happened in that situation.
And it's interesting because these self stories show up in so many different areas of our life. It is in family and parenting. It's in our relationships and our health. And this story client, like they were on, if I had, yes, exactly. There's a vision. Their name was on the vision board. If I had all, and usually keynote speech, it's advance. And my agent would get on a plane tomorrow. I think if you're following limiting story that I had, pull it together. I'm not ready. Sent for a dream. My dream client opened the case. I actually been studying them. I knew it. They say fortune favors the prepared. And I didn't. And the agent thought I was crazy. Such an obvious yes. I don't believe what happened. They're sad about it because the bathroom. I sat on the bathroom floor and cried kind of person. It's just I was being other story, which is I'm failing my children. This passion for my work, which there was almost this successful at both, successful businesswoman at least story. And of course, I had a lineage of moments, starting with was a stay-at-home mom by your dream. And so it was, and then here I was, and on the bathroom floor, at first I kind of decided I would have to say no, and that opportunity would just have to come back around at a better time. And then I decided I had another where I wasn't, and I don't know if you want me to tell that story. I remember it very clearly.
It's because it's sort of funny because it's like these are often so specific too. Because the reason you were going to turn them down trip on Monday that week. Our standard of a good mom is trip. I know. The story is 1.
Exactly.
2 is just out.
It's beyond. It's beyond. You're right. You're right. Like there are, and where do these boundaries get? Yeah. Like at what point do you get to bend I was letting that make a dream, like a one opportunity. It was just, and that's something throughout creating it is how ridiculous they are cases in many. So yeah, I found another story of times that one of them in particular, that's that moment was a 3. We were at home on the floor with blocks. Mama, we're building a castle. Live in this castle, Mama. We are 2 princesses. To be seen as a princess by us, that's how she understands herself, and that's fine. But that I was invited to be a princess too is pretty special. Big castle, Mama. 2 princesses who work. The determination, just so much in really what I was forced to. What I'm doing is teaching to dream bigger. That this is really thought of that story on instead, sitting on what story am I creating? Yes to this. Yes. And it was amazing. And that story many times, because that spiral can catch up to you at any given point.
Well, it's just interesting a little as well, because out of that at a magazine with one of these, I realized therefore, this was, and I'm going to, make that.
Yes.
But you didn't. You chose a different story.
Yeah.
Really can choose.
I've told myself just don't want that. I don't muscles. I want her mother, right? And the real quintessential point is where you want to be at in the city. There's some Wizard of Oz and stories that help get you to where to be. And example, in that situation, the difference. I told the agent to the event, but I couldn't break quality time with my kids on Saturday going and speak the week. And that's not to say that there haven't been times I've gone too far, but when I thought about where I wanted to go and who I wanted important to me, but it might be for someone else. You're right. Like it does kind of, it's funny because when you look up the book, choose your, choose your own adventure, choose your own adventure books. And then
This trips this week is a smart.
yeah, like I would say there's several different ways of what you hear yourself saying something extremely definitively. And so I am for people is I'm just not statements. Anytime you hear yourself, and sometimes I recommend that you put when your watch tells you to stand up, if you have an Apple Watch or one of those tracking watches, that's also a signal for you to what is that one just a second ago. And you go that there's a likeliest anytime I'm doing the laundry, I'm picking up, sending emails, doing something else, there are likely stories there that are probably, or anytime you sense some, happens a lot for me in exercise, like, oh, I can't do it. I don't have enough time. And I don't know. One time my husband, I wasn't working out. I was just thinking about wanting to work out and went out the door and went for a run. And I was so mad. And because I have to think about what the kids are going to do, either the kids are fine. What I needed in that moment to get out and do my workout, where it can come up in really small stories that reminded me of it. There are a lot of different ways, but I think that's one of the things I hope people, wow, maybe there is more better ones.
Negative ones tend to have effect, right? I mean, choosing differently.
Yeah. And know that our brain is programmed to, and keeping us a bit afraid is its job. A bigger desire, then it's kind of time to take it off autopilot in that way.
Yeah. So for our listeners, though, choose a different great stories in your book as a special planner, and he's confronted by the from his company showing like the leaderboard of sales.
Right.
And so send out this email, 5% of the company that they're failures. Be that as it may, he's getting, how does he choose a different story?
Something that was important as well is to have practical pathway forward so that this is something. So even working backwards for him, when this story of was what it kind of all boiled up to, was going to be the best, him feel best to choose a different, the processing that catch. So he knew like, wow, I'm analyzing, okay, where did these come from? Why are they here? Can I look at this differently? Ultimately, then the third is a story about tree and his did these trees, and his father had commented on, your grandpa, and now we get to story about gain that may not even be for you. And him, and then out and planted a tree really meant. And for him, read who he's really here. And he's fast and loose. I'm going to try to, it is, brevity and all encompassing beauty of life, which just happened to serve him well as a financial play that then his clients, his client better, because they got a better sense. Time that email comes, he revisits that.
Wonderful.
Gosh, yes. Love
who doesn't, but
funny because people will come over. Oh, look at all those are
not
nice.
their
Like, what is your story? Care, right? Like you get to like some people. I was just out with friends the other night, and they're like, "Oh, I'm like massages. They take, I don't know. There's just something I should." But instead, I went on the floor and build a Lego set because I feel productive. We do that as a fan, and it's a great way to just be together and all be working on something. So again, it's not all eyes fits all. Shoulds would look like. This is how what a career should look like. The other day, I was talking to a woman who's just really well respected. She said, I can't tell you. So for me, it's not massages. It's not baths or
Lego family over here. We just starting this in mid-December. We just completed our that they do each year, buying a second one because I found the Elf Clubhouse
that they have. Do you have the Home Alone?
Not.
I know. I got Lego Home. I know. They know me well. They know me well. For the yeah.
And I looked that up. Yeah. Well, and Lego is onto this, by the way. In a magazine I saw recently, like just home from work, and it's welcome. And he was like on some Legos.
I know. They know. They know.
Like, you didn't know. You didn't.
I know. Well, you could Lego typewriter. Do you see it?
Well, that's a good scene for an off
typewriter. You should get the Lego sells out.
I know before it's. Well, Kindra, this has been great. Love of the thing that's cool that everybody else knows this, but that the notes function on your iPhone can actually okay, I'll get that stuff to you, but I just got to get my scanner. Like, Laura, I have it for you.
Wait, it can do it. You could just have have a
piece of paper, open notes, a camera, and that it's scanned document.
Yes.
It takes, it's a PDF. It turns whatever you want to do.
Oh, that's amazing. Anything as cool as that. I think that is like really giving out is.
Ooh.
And I'll say this, like nothing to, like it has nothing to go when you just like where you just want to be angry, but also I should. And again, not to get in shape, but just to
Be there in mid-December before the crowds descend at the beginning of January.
Oh my God, I'll be gone by February. Unless the story they tell
If they
themselves
should
in
know,
May.
I have a person who
At that. I really like that seller.
Everyone else should know.
Well, you can find me at kindrahall.com. Of course, I am on Instagram and Facebook and also at Soul.
All right. Well, we are back. That was a great interview from a closet in my new thing going on. So I'm trying to be as far away from it as possible. Just if I sound a little weird, I'll put. But anyway, we're here with the question. And this is from a listener who, and she has changed my telling herself various run-of-the-mill to instill your values and faith. Make slightly more sense than just the straight up patriarchy. But anyway, she says, she's kept my faith, but found myself staying home full-time next year. Tropes of, letting someone else raise your kids. Like, how is she her values? Us about that, about sharing values, about faith, that your parenting preference of paid primary caregivers versus being the primary.
Just because it actually is something I hadn't where I don't know as many peeing in these kind of challenges is also just sort of interesting and perspective, which obviously is a bit up so much of we talk, how we act, even if they're going to, Laura will remind observing us, like all studies, if you look at Emily Oster's book, The Family Firm, she kind of goes through data about what happens to kids when the parents work. The short answer is nothing terrible. There are slightly higher rates of obesity, but doesn't sound like that's your main concern. Other factors that are going to inhibit it. And you also mentioned and a Montessori that is non-denominational, and we love it. It's not true. It's more just for an educational style. For you, if it's a high quality religious, it's never too live and what schools are what their preferences are. So it might strike a balance, values to be emphasized out there that kind of match.
Yeah, thing to keep in mind as you look, hiring a caregiver, if somebody good they are going to support that. You can certainly do, even with younger, them up for activity values. There's all sorts of religious programming involve kids with school events and various things. A good way to establish that. And of course, your caregiver, if you've signed up, you obviously you cannot hire someone religion, like when you're getting into hiring is discriminatory. Your values are, then your kids as their job use to do that. Hire caregivers who then to keep a kosher kitchen, for instance, as a way to something that you can learn. Evangelical Christian, there's less things, associated but you can support them. Religious school route, it might help to work testing that people have come up somehow. That many people saying that read the entire Bible and are cherry picking various verses here. It sounded like a bit of an entrepreneur to me. She was managing land holdings and all that such stuff in household. So that's another. But I was saying, if you're going to determine your life make sure you've read through the whole thing. All right. Not just a few phrases. I have read with the thought that, and for us and roles for us are beyond just what we to contribute to the stories of the great saints through history, the women who have built amazing movements and who helped keep the church going centuries and such. So anyway, just but as Sarah said, there are 106, there's plenty of time to work, children, all that stuff too. I mean, such is life. I think a lot of, people care a lot less about our lives than we think. Everyone is ultimately living their own. So you just have to work. What makes me happy, what makes my kids, what makes my family life work, half it off because, ultimately it's between you and God and not anyone else. To both worlds, I interviewed Kindra Hall on the stories we tell.
You can find me, Six, on Instagram. vanderkam.com. The Both Worlds podcast. Please join us next, making work and life work.